Welcome to Match Ed's Match of the Week, where we are bringing you amazing products and stories that have really captured our attention and heart. And at Match Ed, our heart and mission is to empower you with a hub for personalizing learning because we know it's really so much easier when you journey together. I'm Carly, co-founder of Match Ed, and today I get to introduce you to Anita Chen, founder of Courageous Communications, a program helping kids find their voice through public speaking and debate. She has an amazing background in education. You're going to fall in love with her just like we did, and a passion for equipping the next generation. Anita creates spaces where confidence can really grow and communication becomes a superpower. So whether your child is shy, bold, or somewhere in between, she's on a mission to show them that their voice really matters and how they can use it well. So let's dive in. Anita, thanks for being here.
Of
Can you
course.
tell us what courageous communication is and who it's designed to serve?
Yeah, Courageous Communications is an educational firm where we work with students anywhere from grades 2 to grade 12, and we really want them to find their unique voice in writing, speaking, and uniquely in thinking as well.
I love that. Thinking is definitely something we need to do more intentionally these days. So what inspired you to launch these debate and public speaking programs for students? How'd you start?
Well, when I was 12 myself, I really struggled with English writing and speaking. I was born in the States, but uh, raised in a household that English was not our first language. And even though I could speak it colloquially, I read a lot voraciously, but I still didn't feel confident speaking it in a way that felt formal or writing it. Definitely, that probably felt the hardest. That everything that I wrote felt very colloquial, like as if I was just writing down what I was saying. And I find a lot of students have that same problem. And so, as the daughter of immigrants, it was really hard for me to feel like maybe my parents' dreams were slipping through my fingers because I couldn't speak the language well enough. So I remember feeling really scared in that moment and just trying to do anything to improve my writing skills. At some point, my mom even gave me a dictionary to study. Now, looking back, I know that obviously your writing doesn't improve simply by reading a dictionary or being able to spell aberration. But that's what we did because that's what we knew. Eventually, we were able to find a really great writing teacher. And I was able to become her writing assistant after about 2 years. And then, so when I was around 16, I launched Courageous Communications to help students like me who struggled with English writing and communication. And since then, we've been able to work with hundreds of students in the Bay Area where I'm based and beyond New York, Tokyo, China, Taiwan.
So you mentioned being scared as a kid. I mean, so many children are really just shy or unsure of themselves. How does your background and what you went through, and then just your experience as a coach and an educator shape the way that you're going to teach those
Yeah.
children to really grasp and conquer communication skills?
Yeah, my goal for students is always for them to just take one step forward. We know that students come into the classroom with a variety of different skills and experiences, but one thing that they can all do is take one step forward. And that's my approach with them, whether they are working one-on-one or that we're working with them in a group setting. Because in a group setting, they might all be organized by grade, but each of them is so different. And that's why I think the personalization of learning and the willingness to add the human touch behind the technology that we integrate is so important.
Oh, that's awesome. That's our heart at Match Ed, is that human intelligence as well as that artificial intelligence that the whole world is focused on so much. And in this world, we now have AI. Everything is going crazy. It's really noisy. It could be really divided at times.
Mhm.
Why do you think it's really important to teach kids to think critically and to listen and to
Mhm.
speak really clearly?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the first part of debate actually is listening. And I think one of my favorite quotes about debate is that every debate begins with an agreement. And I say that because you have to at least agree on what you're debating about. Even if the debate is very simple, like should we go to Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out for lunch, we all agree that we're talking about where we should go to lunch as opposed to where we should go on vacation. If you insert vacation talk into lunch talk, it's off topic and it doesn't make sense. But someone who isn't listening deeply may have mistaken what the topic is about. So I think the skills of listening deeply, thinking critically, and being able to present our ideas in a way that's articulate and respectful is needed now, maybe more than ever.
That's really wise. And that's really neat to hear you say that because teaching kids that is going to, like you said, that's going to be not just one step forward, but that's going to be a lot of step forward.
Thank
What
you.
does courage look like to you in the world and in your classroom and the camps that you teach?
Yeah, I think it's in being able to ask big questions. And I have loved seeing what my students have come up with. I had a student who challenged whether or not there should be an age limit on the presidential ticket, whether or not we should have term limits. We've talked about whether or not TikTok should be banned, and there was a proposition in California called Prop 47 that some people thought increased crime, and we considered whether or not we should reverse that policy. So being able to have these sorts of discussions in class to me looks like courage, and I hope that if in the classroom they've been exposed to these topics like inflation, like homelessness, like the environment, the climate, etc., they will feel more equipped to have these conversations in their real lives.
Yeah, are you seeing that? I think about my three boys and our dinner table and the conversations that can happen when someone does pose a really articulate question. A lot of times there's just, you know, boy talk going on, which is
That's
not
an
productive.
incredible dinner table. Yeah, I love
But like
it.
when someone brings a question to the table that really grabs people's heart, all of a sudden we start having conversations that do challenge them to take a stand. And that's a really great skill to have, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what we're doing is we're just sharpening the iron in the classroom so that when it's needed, it can be used to great effect. Yeah, I was just going to mention, like when I say we talked about term limits or age limits or homelessness or inflation, these are not topics that I'm forcing my students to write about or even giving them a list to choose from. They're bringing up these topics just because they are at the level where they can start engaging with the world, looking at the world and imagining what it might be like if they were able to pose thoughtful questions and begin to persuade their audiences with their voices.
That's really, really exciting and really important in the world. So your students, I imagine you become very close. How do
Yeah.
you teach them and help them to go beyond just asking that question or just giving a speech to actually engaging with an audience or challenging a perspective? How is that deeper goal fulfilled?
And obviously, within the confines of a classroom, it will always have a hint of being hypothetical because I might put them in different sides of a debate. But one really fun way that we try to do this is I call them 1 minute debates. So I'll give them a topic and I'll give them 1 minute to think about their arguments, and then I'll have them come up and speak for 1 minute. So, for example, it could be something simple like biking versus skateboarding. Which one is better? And I'll split them on two sides. I'll give them 1 minute to prep, and then they go ahead and start thinking. I think because there's that 1 minute time limit of thinking and then going ahead and just starting to speak, then they kind of lose some of the inhibition of, oh no, I need more time to prep. So then in that type of conversation, you'll see some healthy banter as well. You'll see the biking kids be like, no, like that doesn't make sense. Or the skating kids being like, that's crazy. What would you say that? And you see some of that live interaction. But I always remind them to be respectful. And again, I always hope that whatever I teach them in the classroom or what they're able to glean will be helpful for them as they step outside of the classroom.
Absolutely. So speaking of classroom, and what type of offerings do you have this summer and for the fall semester? And how do you engage? Because I know you engage with students outside the Bay Area. So how do you engage with the broader national community as well?
So in the summer, in July, we have classes that are held in a hybrid format. meaning that I'll be hosting them in person here in San Jose, but I'll also be streaming it live so we can have students from all across the world join us as long as the time zones match up because they are live classes. I do also offer recordings of the classes so that students can catch up if they miss a day or two. And so the offerings are on my website, but in general, it's grades 12 all the way down to grades 2, and we'll focus on both writing and speaking. And then that's an everyday camp. So each week has a different theme. This summer, we're focused on the multiplication effect, the idea that one action can carry a lot of multiplying effects over time. And then in the fall, we move to classes that are weekly. So students will come to class once a week.
I love that your focus this summer is on multiplication. Someone wise I was just talking to was saying, how do we make 1 + 1 equal way more than 2? And that's kind of what you're teaching there, right?
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite stories around this is it's called A Single Grain of Rice. And it was the story of a pauper who had done a favor for the emperor. And at the time, the country was starving. The emperor wasn't starving, of course, but the pauper said, well, all I'd like in return is I'd like just 1 grain of rice. And the next day I'd like you to double it and then double it and then double it. And the king was happy to answer and happy to grant that request. But after 1 week, his accountants came to him and said, we can't keep doing this. Like, we're all going to starve. And so the pauper was able to convince the emperor to feed his people and take care of his kingdom. And so that's another story along those lines of when we consider that our actions don't just matter in the moment, but over time, and they have this synergetic effect on ourselves and other people, we can accomplish much more than we imagine.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Now, I didn't prep you for this one,
Ooh,
but it's my
okay.
favorite question.
All right.
What is your why? Why do you get up every day and pour into this?
Yeah, I think I remember who I was when I was 12 and scared and unsure about presenting myself to the world. And I look back and I see all the opportunities that being able to articulate myself has brought to me, whether it's in the educational world or the political world or in the business world. And I want people to have a voice. There's so many ways now, whether it's social media or through online streams or even just everyday life, where we can get our voice out and amplified and heard. But if that voice itself isn't well developed, isn't well articulated, if we don't have confidence in what we're saying, there's nothing to amplify.
That's that's awesome. That's very articulate.
Thank you.
If so, Anita, as we're just wrapping up, if you could say one thing to a parent who feels overwhelmed or unsure where to start with personalizing learning, given your background and your expertise, what would it be?
I would say first, just take a deep breath. Even the parent's desire to personalize learning for the student is laudable and should be appreciated. So just recognize that even your desire to create an educational environment for your student where they can thrive is so worth admiring, and start in that space of, okay, I want something positive for my student. That's a huge step forward already. And then do one thing at a time. So maybe we don't personalize everything all at once, but we start with the English, or we start with the swimming, or we start with the math. And there are quite a lot of technology tools now available that allows students to move at their own pace, if that's what the definition of personalization is. And there are also quite a lot of human support agents like myself and like Carly and like others who are more than happy to come alongside and support your students. So reach out and we're happy to help.
Oh, that's awesome, Anita. Thank you for sharing your heart. As you were talking about, it's really powerful when we see kids learn to use their voice and see that multiplication, those one steps start to pay off and to show progress forward. At Match Ed, we know it's the intentional, courageous, everyday moments really that make a difference. So all of you out there, keep leaning in. It matters. Those intentional moments, they multiply and they get you one step forward. So let's journey together. Thanks, Anita.
Thank you so much.